Hello, or bonjour, I should say. Dans cette vidéo, nous étudierons le français. Quick translation: in this video, we're going to study French. French is a very important language for spelling bees. A lot of the words come from French, and this is because French contributed a lot to English. I speak French and I absolutely love it. I think it's a very beautiful language, and I'm sure many will agree with me on that. So before we dive into the spelling rules and spelling patterns of words of French origin, I'm just going to give quick background on French. First of all, French is one of the Romance languages. It's a Romance language. Remember, there's 5 of those: French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. And these languages are the ones that came from Latin. And French is a direct offshoot of Vulgar Latin. And you can refer back to the Latin video to see when Vulgar Latin was being spoken. Direct offshoot of Vulgar Latin. Basically, at that point of time, Latin was sort of breaking apart. It wasn't as mainstream or popular as it used to be during like the Roman Empire. So at this time, all these national languages are starting to emerge, such as French in France, Spanish in Spain, Italian in Italy, and these languages are starting to grow, including French. So this is when French originated and started to develop. Slowly it developed its own sounds and spelling patterns, so it slowly differentiated from Latin. But still, a lot of the root words in French and the definitions in French resemble a lot of Latin words, so you can see sort of the Latin in French, but needless to say, it's really different from Latin in terms of sound and spelling, but also it's very similar. So that's something we will notice in French as we do French. Another thing is French is known for its silent letters and its nasal sounds. Silent letters are always in the French words, always unheard, always like lurking in there. So that's one common thing of French. But then also you have these nasal sounds, the sounds that sort of come from your nose, like the sounds. These two characterize French, and they are two of the main aspects of French words. Another thing is French has pretty consistent spellings. Compared to English anyways. I think any language compared to English has pretty consistent spellings. English is probably the worst at consistency, but French has pretty consistent spellings. So as a review, French is a Romance language. Now remember, this does not mean romantic, even though French is commonly referred to as the language of love. It just means it comes from Latin. And it's got silent letters and nasal sounds, as we'll see later on, and it's got pretty consistent spellings, which is good for us. That's good for us. That means that the rules that we learn will be generally applied to most French words. We can apply these rules to most words and be correct. So that's good for us, the consistency of French. So what I'm going to do before I get into the rules of French, I'm going to put up 10 words of the language. I think I'll do this for every language video that I make. I'm going to put up 10 words of that language, and I'm just going to pronounce them. And this is just so you can get a feel for what the words look like in that language, or what they sound like. It's just going to be like a trailer of what's coming next. And the thing is, if you're not accustomed with the language at first, you might be like, whoa, why is that pronounced like that? Like, that should not be the way it's pronounced. And I'm sure that's what you'll feel most of the time, but don't worry. We're going to go through the language patterns and language rules of the language, and then once I'm done explaining those rules, we're going to come back to these 10 words and look at them closely and see why they were pronounced the way they were pronounced before. So hopefully it should just give you a taste of what's coming ahead and what the language sort of feels like. Once you practice a lot of words from certain languages, you sort of have like an innate sense of what that language sort of feels like. It's hard to describe, but hopefully that should bring that out in us. So we're just going to look at 10 French words now. I'm going to pronounce them, and please don't worry if you have no idea why they're being pronounced. We're going to look at that closely once we do the French language rules. So the first word I have, I'm just going to write them here, is this. This is pronounced douanier. Douanier. And if, once again, if you're not accustomed to French, you might be like, whoa, why is that douanier? Like, just why? But don't worry, we're going to come back and look at why this is pronounced douanier. The next word I have is guet-apens. Guet-apens. Now remember, these words, you can try and pronounce them on your own once I'm writing them. You might not be perfect the first time, which is, okay, perfectly okay. But yeah, this is guet-apens. That's the nasal sound I was referring to. Next word is pretty common. I'm sure most of us have probably heard it. Rendezvous. Rendezvous is a common word. Next. This is pronounced rouleau. Rouleau. This is pronounced chaise. Chaise. Go. This word is pronounced maillot. Maillot. This here is patois. Patois. This next one is kind of big. This word is bersaglieri. Bersaglieri. Please don't worry when you see these words. We're going to study them, but this is bersaglieri. Bersaglieri. Next one is fairly small, simple. This is simply pronounced roux. Roux. And the final word I have, no, this is not email, it's émail. Émail. So here are the 10 French words I'd like you to get accustomed to, just to get a taste of what we're going to see soon. These are just pretty good words that sort of represent French. So here we have douanier, guet-apens, rendezvous, rouleau, chaise, maillot, patois, bersaglieri, roux, and émail. And the way I'm pronouncing them is the way they're pronounced in Merriam-Webster's, so hopefully this should give you a good taste of French. And once we're done looking at the spelling rules and spelling patterns of French, we're going to come back to these exact 10 words, exact same 10 words, and look at them closely, and hopefully then you should understand why this is maillot, or why this is émail. And if you're able to do that at the end, then we're all good. You're all good to go. And then most French words you can probably immediately recognize then, and probably even correctly pronounce. So that is my hope. So let's start with our rules. Before we actually get into like the specific letter rules, I'm going to go over certain French stems that are common to French words. Latin and Greek have roots that have certain meanings, but French words, like English, have common endings and like suffixes and combining forms that a lot of French words use. So we're just going to look at common ones, and this is going to help us a lot when we actually look at French words, because we can immediately recognize these stems. So how I sort of divided this was I divided it sort of by definition. There aren't that many. So the first one is going to be words that, or endings that represent the meaning act, action, or process. So this is the first definition we're looking at for the stems. And I'm just going to put the stems here, explain them briefly, and then we're going to see examples later when we look at the actual rules of French. So the first stem I have is this. Just note that this dash means that there's something before this. This ending is odd. Odd. It's pronounced odd. And basically, if you see this at the end of a French word, you know the word has something to do with an act, action, or process. Such as like saccade, or facade. We don't know, there could be anything before this, but if you see the odd at the end, that sort of denotes that there's something with an act, action, or process going on in the word. So odd is a common ending, and just remember this is pronounced odd, so whenever you see this in French words, you'll immediately know how to pronounce it and how to spell it. Next one that means the same exact thing, act, action, or process, is age, 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 somewhat like the word garage. So same thing as ade, this is pronounced age, and it means the same thing, and it'll come at the end of French words, at the very end. Another one, ment, this is pronounced ma, ma. Usually there's a e before in most words, so it's going to be ement in most cases, but sometimes it's not, so I just left it to ment. So anything ending in ma, like denouement, again, means act, action, or process. And again, anything can come before these stems. It's just the endings of these that we're looking at, such as like ed or ing in English. And the final one that means act, action, or process is like demure, your. So again, this will be at the end of French words, and it'll just mean act, action, or process of something. So these four, odd, age, ma, and year, they are French stems that come at the ends of words, and they mean act, action, or process. And there's a lot of words that have these four, and we'll see that in the later videos of French. Okay, so the next definition I have for the stems, it's coming up, is one who does. One who does, and this is similar to like ER or OR in English, like professor or teacher or worker. This is what we're going to look at in French. So it's one who does, one who does, and there's a few stems meaning that. The first one, A-R-D, pronounced ard. You should note that a lot of words are anglicized in French, which basically means that in natural French they're pronounced ard, but when it's brought to English it's changed to being pronounced as ard. And a lot of the words in Merriam-Webster's is going to be pronounced with an ard. But words that end in this ARD basically represent one who does something. Same goes for EUR, such as entrepreneur, someone who does something, like business. The thing with EUR is that this is the masculine form. Okay, it's the masculine form. French, unlike English, has, feminine and masculine, so EUR is the masculine. The same exact thing is EUSE for feminine. So entrepreneurs is a woman who's like a business person. So EUR and EUSE, basically same thing. EUR is just for males, or it's a masculine, and EUSE is feminine. Another one is IER. This is very common. This is pronounced EA at the ends of a lot of French words, EA, and this is also one who does something. Sort of similar to English with that ER at the end. It's almost the exact same thing, but it's pronounced EA because we have that silent R at the end. So this is going to be at the end of French words, meaning one who does. And the final word I have is ISTE, and this is pronounced east, east, such as bouquiniste, like a seller of books, bouquiniste. ISTE is pronounced east at the ends of French words, and again means one who does. One who does. So these 4 or 5, I should say, mean one who does, and they're very common. So you'll see them in a lot of French words, and we'll see that later on. The next one I have, the next stem that we're going to look at, are diminutives. Diminutives are basically stems that make things smaller or cuter. So these are diminutives. Diminutives. Such as let in English, L-E-T, like owlet or booklet or piglet. They make something smaller and cuter. So that's what a diminutive is. And French has two pretty important diminutives. First one is E-L-L-E-L, and the second one is E-T-T-E, et. And these two, again, there could be anything before here, and an E-L-L-E or an E-T-T-E at the end of that would just make it smaller or cuter or more lovable, such as Mademoiselle. You probably know that one. Mademoiselle is like a young girl, so it's like a younger, smaller version of Madame, which is like a woman. So Mademoiselle, and there's a lot of definitions with et. This is similar to like the L-E-T I was talking about in English. So L and et at the ends of French words just make things smaller. They're diminutives, and they are very common. So we will look at a lot of words that contain these. Okay? So that's that for diminutives. And the rest of the stems I have aren't really categorized together, but they're separate, so we're just going to take a look at each one of them separately. First one I have is EM dash and EN dash. Basically, if the dash is after, this means that the stem appears at the beginning of the word. So this time, M and N, actually these are pronounced en, both of them, en in French words. Basically, they mean in. So these are going to be at the beginnings of French words like entree, and they mean in. Okay. Okay, the next one I have, dash if. This means it's going to be at the end of the word. This is pronounced if, and it has the same meaning. It's the same thing as dash IVE in English. IVE is like an adjectival ending, like the word active. Active in French is actif. So it's again like that adjectival meaning. Or sportive in English, sportive, like athletic. Sportive is sportif in French. So basically the if is the same thing as IVE in English, and we're going to see a lot of words like that. There's a noun I can think of actually, motive and motif. In French. So this is pronounced if. It's going to be at the ends of words. So there's something to look out for. And the final one I have is ERIE, écrit. And this is again at the ends of words, écrit. And it's the same thing as, if you can guess, ERY. Dash ERY, I should say, dash ERY. Let me move these quotation marks. And ERY can mean two things in English. The first one is like a quality or characteristic, like tomfoolery. And the second one is like a state or condition, like slavery. So in French, ERIE is a common ending for French words pronounced écrit. And it means the same thing that dash ERY, as in bakery or slavery, like I said, means in English. So these are some extra stems that we will run into in French words. And if you're ever given a word with these stems, you should be able to recognize what it means. You can probably figure that out if you ask for the definition. And another good thing is you will know how to spell these because the spellings of these are consistent. Écrit, meaning ERY in English, will always be spelled ERIE. So knowing these stems is really important. They constitute really important meanings for French words, and they also have consistent spellings. So in the next couple of videos, we're going to analyze the spelling rules and patterns of French words that have these stems, and then we're going to also look at the certain vowels and consonants of how they are represented in French. So basically the spelling rules and spelling patterns of French. So hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.